All right, joining me now to discuss is Ronald Chapman II. He is a federal criminal defense trial attorney. Great to be with you today. Appreciate your time, Ronald. So video shows a confrontation unfolding rapidly as federal agents were attempting to do their jobs. From a legal standpoint, when a person, a civilian, inserts themselves into an active federal operation, what latitude do Border Patrol agents have when it comes to defending themselves if the situation escalates? And it could escalate very quickly in a matter of seconds.
Well, that really is the question. I think it's a great question. And video doesn't show the whole story, right? So what we know now is that immediately when people learn that there are ICE operations going on in a specific area, all of these protesters start to flock. And similar to what we sort of saw on January 6th, a lot of them pretend to be reporters. They pretend to have cameras. But what they're really doing is engaged in that protest. Now, the real problem that's going on here is those people are interfering, but a federal judge has taken the power of ICE agents away, taking their power away to be able to arrest these individuals and prevent them from engaging in these sorts of protests because of First Amendment concerns. This creates a very dangerous situation. We do not have local law enforcement supporting ICE, which they normally would do. We don't have a cordon that's been created. And so when we have an individual like the gentleman who was shot yesterday come forward and try to impede, these officers don't have the tools available. Bad things happen. But thankfully, when we look at self-defense, we look at the whole picture. Why is that person there? And I'll just say one more thing. Normally, when we see lights and sirens, let's say at the house next door or down the street, we don't think, I'd love to run inside that house and go see what's going on. We stay away. Well, that's not what happened here, and that has consequences for the individual. And thankfully, a court of law, if it gets there, would review this as well.
Yeah, actions do have consequences. Minnesota did sue to block federal agencies, that is, from handling evidence in this particular shooting case. The legal question here is, can a state court actually interfere with a federal investigation, or does federal authority take precedence here?
Yeah, the answer here is no. And first of all, I believe the federal judge's order was to preserve evidence, to prevent the destruction of any of the evidence. And potentially there will be an effort to expand the scope of that injunction to allow them to hand it over to state officials. But the reality is that when we're reviewing a federal official's conduct, that is something that should only be a question for a federal court. And federal agencies in the state does not have any power to enforce that whatsoever. Now, that being said, the state does have the power to enforce manslaughter laws that exist in Minnesota. And if they decided to indict any of these individuals, there is going to be a separation of powers fight where the federal government's going to have to step in and say, he's immunized from his conduct because of this. And that's going to create a real battleground. This is why I suggest that these agencies start coordinating immediately to get to the bottom of it so that we can make sure that we don't have to have that federalism fight.
Yeah, Ronald, almost out of time, a little under a minute left, but Attorney General Pam Bondi, she says that accountability is coming from Minnesota Democrats. Of course, we've been hearing all that rhetoric from the governor and from the mayor of Minneapolis. And the question I have for you, are state leaders obstructing federal law enforcement? And do you think Washington stepping in is really going to restore order and accountability?
Yeah, this is exactly what needs to happen. Pausing the ICE activities until we can ensure that Walz and everybody else in their government actually provides the assistance that they're supposed to provide. Right now, they're engaging in obstructionist conduct. They're also making speeches that are causing this sort of harm. And what we need to do is restore the balance of government, both state and federal. And if the state leaders aren't doing that the right way, there needs to be what's called a mandamus action to require them to do it, or they should be immediately impeached and removed so that federal officials can have the state support that they need. That way, these sorts of situations don't happen anymore.
All right, yeah, we're going to leave it right there. Ronald Chapman II, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.